Hi, I'm Jim Finn from Vydamo, and this is Moshcam. Favourite new song? I don't know, it depends. I think Gonna Make It is always a really fun one to play because people know that the best, and all the bands in there got their parts and they're all sort of jumping around, we're all having a lot of fun with it, and it's kind of usually at the end of the set, so it's a very sort of triumphant, victorious moment. And also it's like, oh thank God the set's over, I'm not going to mess anything else up anymore. But also there's one I really like that's kind of the sort of slower, quieter, more introspective ones. It's a bit sadder actually, called Little Monster, and it's just sort of me on the piano playing at the start, and then the band comes in with very sort of chilled and relaxed, and I don't know, it's a nice sort of down-tempo moment where the crowd seems to sort of go a bit quiet, sort of pay more attention and listen. So yeah, both sort of ends of the spectrum I really like, but if I had to pick a favourite, Gonna Make It. You can't beat the single. I think there's a collection of moments writing the album that were sort of the highlights. It tended to be because I wrote all of the songs bar one on GarageBand and did all the demos and stuff on my computer, so I knew how everything went. But the best moments were when I'd sort of go into the living room at my family home and show mum and dad. I'd be like, here's a new one that I've been working on, and I'd play it to them, and then partway through the song they'd be singing along to it and dancing around. I'm like, if that's the reaction I'm getting from my mum and dad, then I think I'm onto something. So I think Bare Feet had that very strongly, and every time Gonna Make It comes on, my mum is dances around. She's like, oh, I love this song, and she'll dance and sing and stuff. So yeah, those moments I think, I guess, yeah, it's nice to make your parents happy with what you're doing. So yeah, those moments. I mean, with Art vs Science, my parents, they wouldn't put the CD on and listen to it, but when they hear it, they're like, oh, this is cool, I can understand how people would like this. But with Vydamo, I'll come home sometimes and they'll be dancing around my living room singing my songs with my album on, which gives me a little twinkle in my eye. So yeah, I think some of the songs I'd written, I sort of started them and would show mum and dad the demos, and they'd be like, oh yeah, that's pretty good. It's not as good. I like the other ones better. And I was never sort of offended. I was like, okay, well, yep, that's good. And I think they were the biggest critics of the whole album, the whole process, because I wrote most of it at home because I had a piano and I could put it on and have them there. So their input was always very greatly valued. Favourite thing is being the only one in control. I don't have to listen to anybody else. I don't have to compromise. I just do everything I want. No, I think there's sort of elements about having it be your own project, and really it allows you to really create your own view, and you can sort of focus right in on exactly what you want, and you don't have to compromise or change your views of the song. You know, if it's in your head, you just think about it, and you can sort of write it in your head a lot better than you can if you're playing with a band or writing with other people, because you're like, that's how I want it to sound, and that's how it's going to sound. I think my favourite instrument to play is always going to be drums. I'm a drummer at heart. That's my main instrument, my favourite. I never get to play it live in front of anyone though, which is a bit upsetting because I love drumming, and I think though it's just too hard to sort of sing and play drums, especially because some of the drums on the album are pretty wild. So I think in any of the songs that I would be playing the drums, it's just I wouldn't be able to do that and sing at the same time. But I always whenever Art vs Science is rehearsing, I always kick down off. I'm like, I want to have a go, and he's like, all right, I'll get us coffee, and I'm like, yeah, and bash the drums. But yeah, drums, always drums. I think probably the very first gig we played at Oxford Art Factory was the best so far. I think there's only been 4 gigs so far, but that one was very special because it was the very first gig. It was at Oxford Art Factory, which really feels like a home to me because I've been there so many times and played with Art vs Science there so many times, and also had all my friends and my family who had heard all the songs beforehand, because I'd always bug them and be like, oh, can I come around and play you this song? I really want to show you this new song I've written. So they all had to sort of put up with me playing it, but finally at Oxford Art Factory I got to have them there to listen to it live. It was amazing. I really put a lot of effort into thinking about how the show could be, because I knew that people would probably only know 1, maybe 2 songs, so I had to figure out how to make it engaging for the rest of the show. So I had at one point I got all these giant balloons from a party shop and blew them up and got my friends to throw them out, and then towards the end I got a bunch of friends in the front row to have 4 of those party poppers each, and I tied them all together so they could just do one big pull, and I'd explain to them when it needed to go off, and they all went. So at the front row there was all these party poppers going, which was like a poor man's fireworks, I guess. I think because there are lots of rider requests that are ridiculous and you're never going to get. So I think you have to have a certain amount of realisticness to your approach. And we always put a golf buggy with the key for festivals because it's so nice to be able to just drive yourself around. Especially when after a few drinks, it's really fun because you start like testing the limits of the golf buggy. And then it stops you having to just steal them from the poor people working backstage and trying to make up reasons why they should quickly jump out without taking the key. But yeah, I won't do that anymore if I have my own golf buggy. Oh, there's lots of tour stories. I think one of the scariest. I wasn't actually there. It was Art vs Science had played up in Townsville at Groove in the Moo, and I'd walked ahead and gone to the after party, and the other two boys down had walked with a bunch of people. I think they were walking across the bridge in the centre of Townsville over the river, and Dan Williams thought it'd be a fun idea to jump off the bridge into the water, and it was muddy water. And anyway, had I been there, I would have advised against it. But anyway, he sort of stripped down, jumped off the bridge, and all the people watching were like, yeah, cool. And then I think for like a good 45 seconds to a minute, he didn't surface, and everyone started freaking out, and everyone started stripping off, like running down to the bank, and like people were stripping off about to like going after him. Finally, he came up gasping for air, and what had happened, he jumped off and his feet had like sunk straight into the soft mud on the bottom. So, I mean, luckily for him, it was soft mud and he didn't break his legs, but then he sunk there and he got stuck and he was like wriggling trying to get free, and he couldn't get free, and he was like, I thought that was the end, I was going to die of some stupid thing. Finally, he got free, and anyway, then they came into the club and I was like, why are you all wet? He's like, oh, I almost died. I was like, sure, here, have a drink. And then they told me the story later. I was like, dude, that was dumb. Don't you know not to do that sort of thing? Anyway, but yeah, luckily he's still with us for a bit longer anyway. Actually, I got some really good advice from Beth Ditto from The Gossip. She told me that in her really cute southern accent, I was like, Beth, what's the best way to warm up your voice? She goes, darling, just go into that room and sing I Will Always Love You by Whitney Houston at the top of your voice. I was like, really? She's like, yeah, that's the best warm up you can do. And so that's what I've been doing lately. A dance move or pose. I think I always seem to do, well, not so much in Vydamo because my hands are usually on the piano or playing the guitar, but in Art vs Science I always seem to point at the sky for some reason and like fist pump and bang my head around a lot. But Dan Mack from Art vs Science has, I think, his favourite dance move is called the Stuttgart Shuffle, he calls it, which is like, it's kind of just like what they do in clubs in Berlin. They just kind of dance like that for like 7 hours at a time, and then they sleep in the club, and then they get back up and do the exact same thing. Because the clubs there are open for days at a time, so you can sleep in there. I'd like to go there and do that. Actually, one guy at Coaster Festival when Art vs Science played there came up to me, and I had like a ring on, like a kind of crappy ring that I'd found. I don't know where I got it from. And he had this ring on. He was like, "Oh, can I swap rings with you?" I was like, "Sure, but yours is like a really nice ring. This is really shit. Are you sure you don't want to like keep yours?" He's like, "No, please." I was like, "Sure, yeah, man, of course." And so I swapped rings with him. I was like, "Wow, that was lucky. I got like a nice ring." And then like backstage, I looked at it, and on the inside was inscribed like "Happy 18th." Clearly, he was only just 18, and then later on Facebook, his sister posted like, "Did my brother give you his ring?" I was like, "Oh no, it was a gift from his sister." I think I don't drink Jack and Coke anymore on tour. I used to do that all the time, but it just gives you too big a hangover. And having Coca-Cola all night or Pepsi or whatever you're gonna have, it's just so much sugar that in the morning you just. I prefer like vodka, lime and sodas because then you get a bit of alcohol, a bit of hydration, a bit of vitamin C.